Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. My name is Dindi, and I'm excited about today's topic because it is one of those that, especially we in Christian circles, don't take to talk a lot about. So I know that it will be of great value to all of us as we engage this evening. I'm going to be talking about holistic health and from a perspective of a medical person and the perspective of a Christian and the perspective of somebody who's a heart doctor. So when I put all these things together, I think it gives a lot of credence to what we're going to learn today about holistic health. I'd like to start with a little story of my journey. A few months ago, I found myself on the receiving end. So we are very much used to being the ones who are treating patients, but once in a while, you find yourself on the receiving end. So I woke up with a back that was very painful. And I had never really had troubles with my back, but and patients, I'd seen many patients who'd come and say they're having some problems with their backs, and I really didn't understand how terrible back pain can be. But I woke up one morning and my back was so painful, I could hardly move. I got out of bed like a log, literally. I had to be rolled over and off the bed because I could not bend the back completely. It was so painful. I couldn't believe it when I found myself on an MRI machine because now they were checking out to see what was the issue with my back. Um, and after that experience, I started thinking a lot about wellness from a completely different perspective. Because once you've gone through pain of that nature, it opens your eyes as to how life can be. It was also one time I really thank God that I'm a married man, because when you are in the facility and you cannot be able to get yourself up, you really thank God when you have a partner that you can call to pick you up in a moment like that. And so today I'm going to be talking about health, but from a number of dimensions. That was just an aspect of physical health, a challenge that I went through. But when we're talking about holistic health, we're talking about all these aspects of health from a mental perspective, from a social perspective, spiritual perspective, from an emotional perspective, vocational perspective as well. All these perspectives are important to have when you're talking about health. I know we as medical people tend to look at health mainly from a physical perspective, but it's important to know that all these other aspects go a long way in defining what health is. And when people are saying they're healthy or not, they're looking at all these unique parameters. Now, why holistic health? Why that word? We in the medical field liked to look at health as absence of disease. And for a very long time, people used to see health that way. That is why there's that germ theory of disease, where they say germs cause disease. So treatment means removing the germ from the body. And in that case, the body, if it does not have germs, it should be healthy. And so many times in the medical profession, the body was viewed like a machine, and disease was a consequence of a breakdown of this machine. And so what you do as a doctor or as a health practitioner was to repair the machine. But then when we expand our thoughts about health, we start to see that there are so many determinants to health. And that is why WHO now defines it not just as absence of disease, but wellness in a physical, mental, and social perspective. I love telling stories. So let me quickly tell you three stories that are going to help us bring this message home. A few years ago, I had the honor of treating one of my colleagues who was a lecturer at the university. He actually taught us in the university, and so it's somebody I respected a lot. One of the senior guys in the medical circles, and he had done so well for himself. We were especially proud of him because he was a medical practitioner and he owned a building in the city. So we were feeling like, aspirational. This is the kind of person you'd want to be like. But when I saw him in hospital, he was pretty sick and he had a cancer in his lungs that was unfortunately stage 4, really terminal cancer. And by the time I was seeing him, I knew he didn't have much long to live. And so when we admitted this gentleman in the ICU, I was surprised because I, I never saw even one person from his family coming to visit him. So 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, no one, not the wife, none of the children. And I was just wondering, this is a bit strange. When you're on a terminal illness, you're clearly on your last days, and none of family is coming to see you. And so I talked to him and I told him, sir, is there a member of your family I can call? And he said, even if you call them, it's unlikely that any of them would come. And and that was tough to hear. And so I asked him why. And he said he handled his family so badly when he was younger. He said he mishandled his relationship with his wife. He said he handled his kids badly. He never had time for them. And so he said he just, when he was sick, like they just didn't have any relationship. Um, and and I thought to myself, wow, how sad that somebody who's done so well from a professional perspective, an economic perspective, has no family life to speak of. His own children, none of them, not even one, could come to see him. I remember one moving moment the day before he died. I just felt I should try convince the eldest son to come and see him. And so I called the son. He was not interested in coming. I kept insisting. The next day, he begrudgingly came. And I remember that awkward moment between the son and the dying father, the son drawing close, and me encouraging him to just at least go and greet the dad. And when he went and greeted the dad, and I saw a tear just flowing down the dad's face before he died, and he said, "I'm sorry, son." And the son was also crying. And he called me a few days later during the funeral, and he told me, "Thank you." He said, "Of all my father's children, I'm the only one who got closure." And so when we are talking about health, we're not just talking about physical health, we're talking about relational, social health as well. The tale of two real estate moguls. Now, there was a gentleman, a good friend of mine, who works in the real estate sector. And a while back, we were having conversation because we sit on the same board. And he was telling me of a traumatic week he had had. They did construction for a certain gentleman, a high-rise building in the city. And it took them 2 years to complete this construction. And on the day that they went to hand over this building, it's a high-rise building, 14 floors, the person that had contracted them to do this building, when they went to hand over this building to him, he said, this gentleman, now the owner of the building, took them to the very top of the building, and they were just showing him around the view of the city from the very top. And he said this gentleman took off his watch, took his phone from the pocket. He put it on the ledge on top of the building, and right there as they watched, this gentleman jumped off to his death, and he left behind a very sad note where he said he did not see any meaning in life. At the same time, the same organization that I was sitting in the board with, there's a gentleman from the Philippines who's become a good friend. He's called Andrew Luzon, and you guys can Google about him online because he owns lots of buildings in the Philippines. He started as a real estate a guy. He constructs buildings. Now, on top of every building that he builds, he puts the words, "In God we trust." And currently, as we speak, he gives 50% of the earnings from his company to the work of God. So, two different people in the real estate sector doing essentially the same thing, but because one is spiritually fulfilled, doing life a different way, and one who's feeling like no meaning in life. Spiritual health, terrible. He did not even see why he should live. And so when you're thinking about health and wellness, it's not only physical, it is social, it is spiritual. And the last story, a friend of mine who recently reached out to me, is somebody I've known for a long time. And after 18 years of marriage, his wife walked away one morning and said, this is not fulfilling her anymore. And she had had it. After 18 years of marriage with 4 children. And he called me and he said, where do I start from? Relational health. So when you're talking about health and why I love to look at it beyond just the physical bit, health implies not only a sound body, but a sound mind and a sound environment. And in this environment, we're talking about a sound physical environment, spiritual environment, relational environment. And so when you look at it from all these perspectives, then we are truly talking about what it means to have holistic health. So health is multidimensional. And for today, I wanted us to zero in on one aspect because we cannot talk about all the aspects in one talk. I wanted to just zero in on one and maybe show us what it truly means to be whole from a physical perspective. And so medical people would understand this more than anybody else. Anytime when you're starting to see a patient, we were taught the first thing at the top is always the chief complaint. This is what the patient comes to you describing. Yeah. So it's used to describe the main reason a patient is seeking care, usually stated in their own words. The starting point of every medical visit. That is what a chief complaint is about. And so for us in health, many times that's how we interact with our patients. But what happens if somebody does not have a chief complaint? Imagine, for those of you who actually see patients in your clinics or in the hospital, imagine somebody coming to you and you asked, so what brings you to hospital today? What is the problem? And they say, well, I don't have any. What do you do? And we in the medical circles struggle when we get people coming to us and they have no chief complaints. Because many of our engagements start with chief complaints. We describe the problem, we examine the body, we do a few tests, come up with a diagnosis, and then give either some medications in terms of pills or patients might need an operation. That is usually the normal pathway. But if we start to think beyond that, that even for people who do not have physical ailments that we can put a finger on, there is need for a healthy engagement. Then we begin to look at holistic medicine. If you can be able to engage with people who are actually healthy and helping them promote health, helping them prevent disease, helping them optimize their health, then we're beginning to think from a holistic medicine perspective. And so it's important for us in the medical space to start to look at people beyond chief complaints and to start to think, can we prescribe something that is not pills or surgery? Then we would be thinking of medicine for the physical body from a holistic perspective. So my dad loves telling me that repetition is the crux of teaching. So let me repeat this again. Holistic medicine has got so many components. We've talked about some of them. For today, we are zeroing in on just one, physical wellness. And we are zeroing in on this physical wellness from a perspective that takes us beyond traditionally what we have been taught to think about, which is what is the patient suffering from? What pills or surgery can this patient have? Instead, let us look at it from a wellness whole perspective. Somebody might not even have any complaints, yet they need a prescription. And so when it comes to physical health, these are the three main components that I would love for us to think about: movement, nutrition, and rest. Many of you here from the scriptures, I know you know the story of Elijah. especially the story of Elijah and his encounter on the mountain with the prophets of Baal. And after he killed so many of them, had such amazing spiritual victory. Just the next chapter, we encounter Elijah completely discouraged, clinically depressed. If there was a psychiatrist at that time, they would have diagnosed Elijah with clinical depression. Maybe he would be on some pills by now. Now, when God encounters Elijah discouraged, when he's saying, just take my life, I'm the only one left, it's interesting what God does. When I was reading this story, I was just thinking, if I was in the shoes, maybe of the angel that came to see Elijah, what would I do? I imagine that most probably I would probably give Elijah maybe try mute the yeah, help us as a host. So if I was the angel sent to Elijah, I imagine I would be thinking that probably the thing that I'm going to do with Elijah is to give him maybe some very unique spiritual perspective and maybe give him a dose of faith so that he can start to look at life differently. Maybe I would be telling him, hey, that fire that was at the mountain, that fire is in your heart right now. Come on, Elijah. You just saw God moving in such a great way. How can you be discouraged? Maybe there was a dose of spiritual wisdom that I thought I would be coming to give Elijah. But it is very interesting when you see the actions of God here. He does three interesting things. The first is that he gives Elijah rest. So he gets Elijah to sleep. Number two, he gives him food. So Elijah is given some food. And then lastly, after he eats and rests very well, he gets Elijah to run to a new assignment. So literally these three things: rest, nutrition, movement. That is God's prescription. And so I want us to look at these particular aspects with a bit of detail within the context of the short time that we have. What does it mean to move well? What does it mean to have proper nutrition? And what does it mean to have rest that truly invigorates the body? So when you're talking about movement, these are the concepts that we have. Prolonged sitting. Many of you must have heard about this study where they looked at the bus drivers in the UK and they found that the conductors that were moving around, wale jamaa wa Rongai Hamsini, those guys were having longevity. They were actually having twice as better quality of life than the seated bus drivers, which was very interesting. Now, to just paint it very well for us to remember, people with sitting jobs have twice the rate of cardiovascular diseases as people with standing jobs. Think about that for a moment and think about the job that you have currently. This is another very interesting study. Now that a lot of you are medical people, you want us to quote some studies. 147% increase in the risk of cardiovascular disease for people who sit, and I'll define what excessive sitting looks like. 90% increased risk of cardiovascular mortality when you sit for long periods of time. I know some people say, my job involves a lot of sitting, but I usually exercise every day. But these results are actually independent of exercise. So if you just sit most of your day and then you work out for an hour in the evening or in the morning, it does not negate the effects of excessive sitting. And so once again, we are shouting this for those at the back. Exercise is not a perfect antidote for sitting. It's important to know that. Even if you exercise daily, you need to break your sitting a lot. So this is an important concept to have at the back of your mind. What do you do? Every half an hour, if you can break your half hour in this sense, if you're seated, make it 20 minutes, stand for 8, and then move and stretch for 2. There's a time I saw Esigal, my wife, taking some people through some exercises they can actually do in the office from their chairs in the office. And it's interesting that you can do so much just from your chair, standing, stretching, and things like that. So if you break this, then it means your 8 or so hours that you would have sat in the office actually becomes just 5 hours of sitting, 2 hours of standing, and about half an hour of movement. There are practical ways of doing it. For example, if you want to talk to your colleague across the office, it's better to actually walk across to them instead of taking the phone and calling. We know the lifts in the hospital. I've seen a number of colleagues here on this meeting today, and I usually see them taking the lifts all the time. You know yourselves. Take the stairs instead. These are practical things you can do. Park your car far, walk across. Anything you can do to reduce your sitting time and increase your movement time goes a long way. But that said, exercise is so important. I'm lucky because I live in my house with one of the fittest people that I've ever come across. You know, my wife and what the work she has been doing. This lady does not miss her exercise. She exercises every day, rests over the weekend. Now, before you start saying that we don't have a gym where we're staying, she does this from home. You can see this is actually from our house. She does this from home. And she says that way, even if it's raining, whatever, the gyms are closed, you can. So there's no excuse. You can actually have a consistent exercise regime from the comfort of your home. Brothers and sisters, I know we pray a lot for healing, and that is God's doing. But health is our business. Healing is God's, health is ours. So, how do you make it practical for yourself? There's simple things that you can do on the daily. So, even if you just make it half an hour every day, that goes a long way. It doesn't have to be long, it can be very brief. There are lots of places you can get these things online these days. You can literally get AI to design a workout program for yourself, and you're good to go. So make it routine, make it a lifestyle. I usually joke about the way we travel, because we travel quite a bit. The first thing on our travel bags for Esther is usually her workout gear. She's that committed. And so for me, I was never committed at the beginning, but she's influenced me a lot. And so I know it is doable. And we are growing older. As guys, we were in the university in the 90s, so that tells you our age. We have 3 kids, but she's looking amazing, very strong, and that is taking care of the temple that we've been given by God. As I'll say it again, many times we like praying for healing, but we don't like working for health, and that needs to change. There is a statement that I've had said in my house many times when AC is coaching her clients. She says, you can have excuses or you can have results. You cannot have both. And so if you remember the story of Naaman the prophet, there is something he was asked to do for the healing to come. And when he was feeling like he is not going to do it, he was told, just do your bit. And he did his bit, God did his. God will not do what he has given us the ability to do. God expects us to do what we can do, then he can do what we cannot do. And so taking care of our health, that exercise, that movement, he will not do it for you. In my house, I've also had it said, you can never outsource your fitness to someone else. You can't outsource it. It boils down to you. So that was one part. Because of time, I'll move on to the second bit. As I said again, my dad taught me about repetition. So I'll take us back to the beginning. Holistic health encompasses many aspects: physical, social, mental, vocational, relational, all those aspects. But for today, we are zeroing in on the physical aspect. And on the physical aspect, I've chosen to zero in on the non-traditional aspects that we many times don't think about. It's not just about, are you sick somewhere, go get sorted, or the way we sort our patients, but if there is no chief complaint, what can you prescribe? So the first one we talked about was movement. And we've gotten this from the example of Elijah in the Bible when he was very discouraged. It's interesting that God offered him food, rest, then got him to move. And so when you think about it from these three perspectives, your physical body, holistically, you're thinking about movement. But number two, you're thinking about nutrition. Now, when you think about nutrition, there's so many different things we're usually told. Like on one day, you're told coffee is good for you. Next, you hear it's bad. Eggs, oh, they're good for you. No, they are not. Like a lot of controversial things. But there are some crucial bits that really move the needle. You know about the Pareto principle, that 80% of your results come from 20% of effort. And so there are certain things that if you get right nutritionally, they truly move the needle for you. They'll give you 80% of the results. Then for the extra 20 is when you can start going into those controversies. Should I use this seed oil or not? All that. So what is truly giving value when it comes to nutrition? What is our 20%? And this is what I'm going to talk about, because this is what truly gives you value. I'll start by saying there's no need for drastic measures. Yeah, we all know about what people do, detox. I was shocked a few years ago when I heard that some people are eating guava leaves because they thought that this was going to help in cutting weight and detoxing the body. I was quite surprised. It's interesting the dynamics that are out there and what people believe. I'm actually hoping that many more of us in the medical field would step out into the social consciousness of our people to talk about what truly works and to talk about things from a scientific medical perspective. So we all know about things that don't work. So simple dietary modifications are more sustainable and they achieve long-term results. So what is our important 20%? We do know processed food are a problem. I'll not go into much detail. Simple sugars are a problem. So if you can just avoid processed foods and simple sugars, that is your 80%. Think more of whole meals. Last weekend, we were speaking at a church. We were speaking at Sitam in Gong. We were preaching for the morning and second services. And I remember during the breaks, I asked them, the children, the Sunday school kids that we hear singing, what do you guys offer them as snacks during Sunday school? Because many of the congregations I've been going to, when I see the foods that the kids are being given as snacks, and so the kids are growing up seeing this as normal. This, even in church, this is what we are given. This is the good food. Are all the things that are processed, they've got plenty of simple sugars, and they're setting them up for a lifestyle of bad nutritional habits. And so anytime I go to a church, I usually just feel like I must mention. And there are a few churches that do something about it. Some might not, but I usually love to mention that, hey, we can actually start giving our kids healthy snacks, because that way they start to see this as being normal. And so when you think about your house right now, I know the kids have been home for the holidays. What are the snacks that are in your house as we speak now? I'm not attacking anyone, but go and look at your fridge. What is in there? What did you have for lunch? Is it taking care of the body? Remember, we kept saying nutrition either feeds disease or heals the body. So think about it from those perspectives. If you can do away with processed foods and simple sugars and think more from a whole meal perspective, then that is what will give you the 80% results. Lastly, we do know, there's no controversy about this. Vegetables are great. And so if you can have more portions of veggies on your table, and especially have more options, the more variety of veggies you have on your table, the better. There is something that we call the gut microbiome, and we're discovering more and more about its role in health and longevity. And so the more variety you feed your gut microbiome, the better. It would be interesting for you guys to know that the human gene, the bacterial burden in the body, like in the gut microbiome, they outnumber the genes for those microbiomes, they outnumber the human gene itself by 100 to 1. Another day we'll talk about, we'll double click on this aspect of microbiome, but it's a big thing. It's a huge thing. And so the more veggies you have and the more variety of veggies you have, the better. What I'd wanted to end with here is this whole aspect of foraging. Because as guys do so many conferences, I'm always amazed. We have breakfast at 8 in the morning in a conference, and it's a buffet. It's a serious breakfast. People have heavy breakfast. When we go for the conference, there are sweets on table, so we are still feeding. At 10 o'clock, there is chai with um, processed stuff and many simple sugar things. You guys know what I'm talking about. At 10 o'clock. Then we have a heavy lunch. Then there'll be more sweets. Then we'll have chai at 4. Then we'll have dinner. And some people will have even an after dinner snack. So that the body is consistently being given so much food to deal with. And our insulin levels remain high throughout. So one of the things that I would love for you guys to do, if you get a glucose monitor, and these days there are continuous glucose monitor gadgets that you can have, that you can literally be able to see your glucose curve throughout the day. You'd be amazed. So if you can take foraging out of your system, meaning have meals when you're having meals. If you decide to have them 3 times a day, great. If you decide to have them twice a day, even better, so that there are huge chunks of time when your body is not being forced to deal with sugar. It's a great thing. So the foraging idea where you're ever eating, like the way the herbivores do, they're always chewing cud. That foraging idea puts our body at a disadvantaged position. I will leave it at that. It's something I'm passionate about, so let me shut up. Now, every time you're eating, you're either feeding disease or fighting it. Somebody said that, and I think it's there's a lot of value. Rest, lastly. God met Elijah and gave him rest, gave him food, and got him to move. Now, I know there are many people who believe in the hustle mindset. Push yourself, sleep for as few hours as you can, and just get the job done. And I know in medical circles, because of some of the training we went through, I remember there are times when one of my craziest days was when I did a call that ended up being 36 hours without any break. I was on my feet throughout that period of time and working in an OR, and it was crazy. So some of our training almost makes it look like this is normal. Even in Christian circles, I have seen settings where we have what I love to call worship of work. It's like your value is based on just how much you can be able to do. So by 6 o'clock, you're in the hospital and you're not coming home until it's dark. And there's still work to be done before the next morning. When you add that to the current culture where we have our phones in our bedrooms and people are scrolling inside the bed at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, people are still exchanging memes. And so even when it's not work, many of us are sleeping for very few hours. We know the recommended hours for sleep. We all know that, 7 to 8 hours. And there are many studies that show, I don't know if some of you guys remember the structure of the chromosome and those telomeres that are at the end of the chromosomes. The length of those telomeres at the end of the chromosomes actually determines not only how long you live, but the quality of life that you have on your tail end. And sleep helps protect those telomeres and keep them long. Rest. And so when you sleep for a few hours, I like to say, sooner or later, you will pay for your sleep habits. Sooner or later. If you don't pay for it now, you'll pay for it later. There's now technology that can actually map out your deep sleep hours. And so you know what is recommended. And as you sleep, you can map out how many hours am I actually doing deep sleep. So when you double click on REM and non-REM, so sleep is important. Rest as a concept is important. Working from rest. God, Jesus, why he came was to take us from this point where we feel like we need to work to earn something, salvation and all that, into a state of rest. So it's good that whatever it is we are doing it from a perspective of rest. So rest as a mindset. And so when you think about it that way, you start to really value your times of rest. And so I'll go back to the beginning and say, are you moving throughout the day? Are you keeping time that is dedicated for exercise? How does your plate look like? Just think about it. Today, as you went out, many of you might have been out today, for example. What did you order? It matters. I know some people say, it was my cheat day, and some are ending up having cheat weeks, cheat months. So how is your movement? How is your nutrition? And importantly, how is your sleep? How are you handling sleep hygiene? Are you sleeping with your phone? Are you sleeping with your phone in your bed under the pillow? Are you exchanging memes at midnight? Or are you allowing your bedroom to be truly a sanctuary for rest? As I bring this to a close, let me remind us of these three important concepts. That we are great, especially as Christian community, at praying for healing, but poor at practicing health. We need to change this if we are to talk about holistic health. The body is God's gift to us, but how we take care of it is our gift back to him. This is the temple. And when you take good care of this temple, that is our gift back to God. But I wanted to really emphasize this last point. Your body is the only platform from which you can execute the gift within. Because each of us has been brought to the world with a mandate. There's a reason why you're here. God is a God of purpose and design. And so there's an assignment that is part of your DNA. But the only way to fulfill this assignment is through a healthy body. I still remember that day when I could not be able to bend my back. I could not be able to get out of the house. There was a surgery that was planned that day. I could not be able to go and do it. My life came to a standstill. It didn't matter what skills I have, I could not be able to execute. And so the only way you'd be able to execute the mandate of God in your life is if you can take great care of this body. Just recently, we met a couple friend that we really admire. These guys have been married for 65 years. 65. And they're so inspirational. They're now in their late 80s, healthy, loving each other, vibrant members of their community. And as I was looking at them, I was just thinking, this is the kind of life I would want to live. So just like Joshua and Caleb of old in the Bible, at 80, they would be saying, give me this mountain, I will take it. They were still physically strong. We started by saying holistic health encompasses quite a number of areas. We zeroed in on physical health, and we said, without a complaint and without prescribing pills or surgery, how can we look at physical health? And we said 3 important things: movement, nutrition, and rest. And we've ended by saying, the body is God's gift to us, and how we take care of it is our gift back to Him. May we be those men and women that will take care of this great temple in such a way that brings honor and glory to God, so that the gifts that are within us can go out and change the world. Thank you so much. God bless. I'll hand it back to the hosts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Enjoyed, and some of us have dealt the way. Yes. And yeah, we are actually going to make amends concerning the nutrition, concerning working out, and like get very, very insightful. Yeah, that's very insightful, and the wisdom you've long, long, long way. My own take home is, and please share your take homes in the chat. It's either I'm having results or I'm having excuses. So it's for me results, or will I sit with my excuses? I hope you've also that will change how you're living your day-to-day life. Yes, now let me invite my co-moderator, Dr. Mukoma Victor, to take it on from here. Thank you so much. I've been your moderator, co-moderator, Joanne Jemutai, a third-year medical student at Egerton University, taking medicine and surgery. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanne, for leading us in the first part of the webinar. And thank you so much, Dr. Keith, for the presentation. It was really awesome. As we were going on with the webinar, we've been very active in our chat box, asking you guys to send in any questions you may have. Personally, I have a question. I've been thinking about the aspect of sleep, and for women, especially those who are postmenopausal, most of them struggle with sleep. You might be doing all the good practices, you don't sleep with your phone, you eat healthy, you exercise, but still you need some medication to sleep. So I just have a question. What are some of the things or the practices that we can advise them to do to help them at least come off the medications? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that works like a charm is exercise, and I've seen it for a lot of ladies, because I saw my wife Esther coaching ladies a lot, and a lot of the conversations around that aspect of sleep. And when people make exercise something consistent, their sleep patterns improve markedly. So one of the things I would advise folks, we as doctors need to start being comfortable prescribing exercise, like the way we prescribe medicine. The way you can say, I don't prescribe tablets as much now, but I remember one of those interesting prescriptions ilikuwa kitu inaitwa chloroquine. Yeah, 444, was it 2 or 2444? Anyhow, That one. So the way you are able to prescribe it that well, we should be able to say, do 20 jumping jacks in the morning, followed by 15 maybe push-ups, followed by maybe a lateral raises, then finish with 20 sets of maybe dumbbell squats or sumo squats. We should be that comfortable. So I think part of the prescription should be in that nature. But the other thing that I've really loved now, we have a new crop or field that has in our country now that is focusing on pre-menopause, menopause, and post-menopausal issues. So we actually have experts that can help ladies to be able to deal with some of the challenges that they go through around that time. But I have seen practically for many ladies as they get into menopause, even post-menopausal, when exercise is done as consistently as daily, it completely changes the way their sleep habits go. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the input. So to the rest of the members, is there anyone who has any question? Feel free to unmute. We'll respond to the questions. From the chat box, I can just see some of the questions are about the Sunday school snacks. One of the members is saying that the snacks are really cheap. So it's like the healthy snacks. Okay, healthy snacks are a bit more expensive. So what are some of the cheaper options that are healthy? Yeah, that one can use.
So one quick answer. I just had my wife mentioning from the back when you're asking that, and she said something that's interesting. She said, we need to even think if the children really need those snacks. So she said, the children have had breakfast from home when they are coming. And usually we know when church is ending. In fact, these days church ends very quickly. It's a 2-hour affair and people are going back home. So she's like, do the children really need the snacks? Because it's part of the foraging I was talking about. People are getting used to this idea of you eat at 8, then at 10, then at, so it's like, do they really need the snack? So that is one thing. But the other aspect is when you come together as a church community, one of the ways to think about it is children can come with their own snacks. So it's no longer a cost even for the church. Just encourage, they wrap something easy and they come with. And then this whole aspect of healthy fruit choices are usually an easy way to go. Things like the bananas that are in season. So when you think about the fruits that are in season, they're usually cheaper at that time. And when they're not juiced so that they're being eaten whole, then the intake is much less, or sugar is much less than if you convert those into juice. So I know some folks they think that if you drink it, it is not as bad as if you eat it. But we actually know from a science perspective, it is better to eat it than to drink it. And you can imagine how many oranges it takes to make 1 glass of orange juice. And if you are asked to eat all those oranges, you'll not be able to. And the few that you eat, you're eating with fiber. So those are the perspectives that I think are important to think through, but to even question the need for snacks if it is a normal Sunday service. Just perspectives.
Yeah, perspective. Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Patricia Obinda, I see you've raised your hand. You can unmute.
Yes, I have. Thank you so much, Victor, and thank you so much, CMF, for organizing such a meeting. It's so helpful. And thank you so much, Dr. Dindi. You have been such a blessing. I'm a huge fan of yours from LinkedIn. I also follow Dr. Esther. You guys are a great blessing to us. Thank you so much. And so my question is kind of the same to the person who was just previously asked. So first of all, let me confess, I'm a culprit. I have been listening to this webinar, eating some biscuits. So I really deserve some.
Indwe.
Yeah, so I'm a huge culprit. So I have to change. I have to change my life. And my question is, how can students be able to take care of their health as early as now? Someone just mentioned that some of these healthy snacks are quite expensive. And there is someone who mentioned it in the chat box that hii kuinama ya comrades, it's kind of healthy. So I don't know the truth about that because I remember some years ago, I used to kuinama a lot. So I used to fast. I used to fast a lot. And eventually I got to develop some unhealthy eating habits. I would not eat for days. I would just eat like once in a day. And it became a struggle for me to get back to my feet when it comes to eating. I would struggle a lot to eat. I would really struggle a lot to eat just a little amount of food. So I'd like to know, what are some of the strategies, health strategies that students can adapt, and especially with how economy is hard for students in the university? Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Just to start by saying, I was one of those students, and I came from euphemism. The politically correct word is to say from a humble background, but just is really to mean there wasn't much resource, and so in college, the economics were tough. However, if you think about the plate from a practical perspective, that you need half the plate to be mboga, and then a quarter of the plate is some form of whole carbs, and then the other one, some form of protein. And if you're not doing meats, you can do even plant-based protein. But remembering when you're doing plant-based protein that they do have already carbs on them. So if you always look at your plate that way, then you're not even thinking specifically about a meal plan in terms of specific items, but you're thinking of it from a concept standpoint. So if you think about it that way, us guys would go to some places where, they were not fancy hotels. They were just simple. I remember there was one that was literally called a suya filling station. And then there was another one called Kihara Hotel. And that I was very uncomfortable with the hotel having Hara as part of the name. I ended up having quite a bit of diarrhea from that place. But there were a few places we could go that had affordable meals, and we just did simple meals. Ugali mboga with one or two pieces of meat floating in a sea of plenty. That was it, So just keeping it extremely simple, extremely simple, without much bells and whistles. So I think if you keep it that way, you'd find we are not yet, and because us guys have worked in this country and in a Western country as well, we are not yet at that point where good food is very expensive. It is coming. It is coming for sure, because I remember very well in Melbourne, getting healthy like foods, it would cost you more. So it's coming, but we are not yet there. So let's take advantage of what we currently have. And the other people, I think, in the chat who can give other ideas, keeping it from a concept standpoint. Half the plate, let it be mbogas, then some healthy carbs and some two proteins, even if it is two pieces floating. If you're doing plant-based protein, remember that much of it is still carbs. So if you're still doing a healthy carb, then the portion reduces. But if you can have half your plate as mbogas, goes a long way. Lastly, I would say this. If you can rethink your breakfast, because we have been so conditioned to think that breakfast is chai with bread. And so many of us keep doing it that it doesn't have to be chai with bread. It doesn't even have to be chai with anything. It can just be a meal. And if you take a good breakfast, you might find that you then don't need to do the snacks that we do in between. You might actually find you don't feel like you need the lunch. So if you can look at breakfast as a meal, that you're also thinking about it from those perspectives, then it goes a long way. Thank you.